I think it's disrespectful to call a senator or whoever it is, Ilhan Omar, a inbred Somalian.
To be fair,
I don't need to
she's
hear
married
from
to a
someone that
brother.
says that.
Let's go ahead and kick it off. Evan,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Silent, what you got?
I was going to say to Rob, there's one Democrat that I hate a lot, and they're not really smart, but sometimes a broken clock is right twice a day. Ilhan Omar. She is a major voice for the Muslim lobby. So even though she's an inbred Somalian, she gets smart people to go and feed her good information. And I think like her criticisms about how Trump is handling Palestine with the U.S. occupying like the coastal Gaza Strip to oversee like a occupational government. I have a lot of criticisms towards that, and I think her criticisms are valid because, like I said, I think she's getting told by smarter people that why it's bad, and I know that she was definitely criticizing Biden's approach to the whole Israel-Palestine debacle.
Evan, you don't own any assault rifles, do you? I just want to make sure.
No.
Okay, good.
Who said
just checking? No manifestos, nothing, nothing weird on 8chan, 4chan in your browser history.
No.
Right. Okay, cool.
I guess
Sorry,
to respond to this,
interrupt.
I guess I'll say this to respond. Like, criticizing particular foreign policy decisions and stuff isn't exactly what I'm talking about. If you're someone who's, let's say, pro-Palestine, and you're like, I didn't like that Biden was too in bed with Israel, I don't like that Trump is, that sort of meets the criticism I'm talking about when you criticized an issue on your side that you carry that criticism over. When it comes to this issue particularly, though, I guess if we're going to focus on Ilhan Omar, I would say, what is the nature of our criticism? Does it have to do with sort of Israel violating sovereignty and having these attacks and the United States not being involved? Would you say that's a fair characterization?
Yeah, I would think so. Though I feel like all that goes down to at the end of the day is probably Muslims are a protected group, and the Israelis are more Western. So, like through intersectionalism, you support the Palestinians because they are the less Western force.
I would agree with you. I think that's exactly what's going on, that they have a politically favored class. At this point, they view the world through the lens of cultural Marxism, people like Ilhan Omar. And so she'll say the Palestinians are victims and the Israelis are oppressors. Therefore, the standards don't apply to the oppressed, but they do to the oppressor. So if she tried to couch it in language of sovereignty or something like that, the question I would have is, where was her claims of sovereignty when the United States, against the will of the people of Syria, were stationed in Syria? Why didn't Syria's sovereignty matter? Right? And that's always the problem with these like sort of boisterous claims of foreign policy where you make these big, like, it's about democracy, it's about protecting the innocent, it's about protecting sovereignty. But it's always selective, right? As soon as it becomes like, well, actually, we don't like Syria, so screw them. We can go in and we can do that. We don't like Libya, so we can go in and do this to Libya and get rid of Gaddafi. But I personally like Hamas or Palestine, and so therefore it's wrong to do it there. I take that heavily with a grain of salt. That's not to say that there aren't situations where there are good actors and bad actors. My way of dealing with this is the United States has enough problems back at home. It is clear that we do not have competent or benevolent leaders, and so we need to stop getting involved in these conflicts. So stop funding Israel and stop funding Palestine. And we should be there to broker a peace deal, same in Ukraine and Russia, but we should not be involved in the conflict to arm either side, sending money, sending troops to either side. That should be our role. Even if there is a role for the U.S. to be a world police, we've clearly lost that prestige by the fact that we've had people running this country, shadow industries like the CIA that's been screwing, like I'm sure you'll see here Ditzo talk all about this, like where actions that our leaders made in places like the CIA screwing over countries in South America, etc. I no longer trust these people. Instead, we should pull back and have the focus be back at home. Ilhan Omar, though, is a blatant hypocrite who has preferred class of people, so I wouldn't, I'm not saying I hate everything about her, but I think she's terrible. She's amongst one of the most blatant hypocrites in Washington, and I don't take anything she says seriously. It's all about favoring her protected class and her group that she has an affinity for. And the standards she seeks to enforce on the people she disagrees with, she would never enforce upon our own collective groups. The ends will always justify the means with those sorts of people.
That's fair.
So outside of Palestine, I mean, when you look at Ukraine and Russia.
Sorry. Evan, did you have...
I'm sorry, Sarah.
My apologies. Evan, I know you typically ask one question and then we roll. Did you have any more to add in?
Part of me wanted to say something with like the last super chat before you went and said all like the parts about like the moving of the viewers. I'd say like with like the bureaucracy of the United States when it comes to like every single major empire historically, empire is built on the bureaucrats to go and operate it. And I think that since it was built in World War II and it was designed to go and be effective, it has worked very well, but now I'd say like there needs to be serious reform and overhaul, and I feel like almost that.
Is that for Rob? Is that for Rob, or can a progressive answer that?
Oh, I'd say anyone can answer that.
I agree. So,
okay, so
I don't have much to say. So go ahead, Doug.
So I would, the only thing I would add to that is the first part that you said, where empire is built on bureaucracy, is completely suppositional. It doesn't mean anything. And then presuming some problem is also just seems like it's another second thing that you pulled out of your ass, right? It's incredibly disrespectful. It's rude. It's not accurate. And so I take incredible offense that you would bring something up like that, Evan. Even whatever, like Evan. I mean, I don't know what to say to you right now.
Duck, let me respond to this on Evan's
reprehensible.
behalf, if he doesn't mind. Right? You think it's disrespectful that we're criticizing bureaucracy?
I think it's disrespectful to say that, oh, well, we should start thinking about the revolution when we don't know why society's consolidated. I think it's disrespectful to call a senator or whoever it is, Ilhan Omar, a inbred Somalian.
To be fair,
I don't need to
she's
hear
married
from
to a
someone
brother.
that says that.
She is literally practicing incest, and that is, and if you look at like the
What do you?
cousin marriage rates in Somalia, it's not very good.
Just a quick question to Rob in regards to that criticism of bureaucracy. Thank you for having me. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in real quickly on this. Rob, your criticism of bureaucracy,
Hilarious.
is it applicable from the local small point of reference to then the statewide to then the federal wide? Would you criticize in the same way the bureaucracy of a small county that they're fucking up in the same way that you are criticizing the federal sense?
Sure. A bureaucracy will tend to have similar problems that I'm talking about, no matter how small they are. I don't even have to take it to government. Your bureaucracy in your Burger King that you work in, there's going to be corporate bureaucracy. Oftentimes it is sluggish. It could be corrupt if it's left unchallenged, much like any other hierarchy. However, I think the more localized you get, whether it be through companies, whether it be through governments, the more local you get, the more that it becomes reasonable to the people that are watching to be able to see these things, and the less total control that they have. The problem with the bureaucracy in the United States is that it's so entrenched and so massive. In fact, someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that by the numbers, we have more people that work for our government than any other government in history. Is, I believe, an accurate statement. It is so big, so massive, has so much power, and has such a lack of transparency that it warrants more criticism than my county bureaucracy that has 4 people that work for it.
And I'll say kind of like for like the county example, a lot of the times it's like people are voted in because they're popular in their county, and then they hire people who are competent to go and do the job. And if you go and take that from like a small scale and move it up, like all the people who are actually capable of running the government, they all go and they talk amongst each other. They all go and do favors to go and get things done, like grease like the wheels. And at the end of the day, like the actual ruling of like the government is completely inefficient and it doesn't even follow like the democratic process. It's just
this doesn't sound like it's citing this isn't citing any research on how government works. This is absolutely unacceptable, Evan. Like, I don't know if this is like a homeschooled argument or something like this, but this isn't coming from someone who knows anything, who's done like any research, right? Have we not spent the last really solidly since the 1960s studying democracy? We have. The U.S. government has spent probably billions of dollars studying democracy, probably tens of billions, maybe hundreds of billions studying democracy.
Wait, Ditso, let me respond to this real quick, right? If you're offended and say that like we're out to lunch, like criticizing unelected officials that are really running things, I have a simple question.
That's your word, offended, Rob.
Okay, but
that's your word.
No, wait,
offended.
but you're like
my word isn't offended.
What's the word? You seem
You
incredulous.
just said you're offended.
Yeah, take offense.
And so I take incredible offense. Incredible offense.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said, but whatever. It seems that that's the impression you're given, even if you didn't directly use that word. I have a simple question for you. Who was running the country for the past 4 years?
Well, what's the date today?
How about during the prior administration? How about that?
So who was running the country?
Correct. Yes.
Well, I mean, that's not a coherent question. So
sure,
the
it's
executive
coherent. Does everyone else on the panel understand the question?
Yes,
I do.
Everyone understands the question, Rob.
Yeah.
So then it's coherent.
Is there an ontology for the country?
Oh,
Yes.
Listen, I'm just some dumb redneck. I know you like to use $10 words. My question is, who was the people that were actually making the decision and how the governance occurred in the executive branch? The ontology of the country is irrelevant to that question.
So Biden would have had an administration, and there would have been, we're guessing whatever the equivalent of like executive bureaucratic leadership at every agency.
Okay, so Biden, we're now seeing even from prominent Democrats, was so out to lunch that basically there was a shadow team that was really running things. And when we look at policies that are massively unpopular, such as the porous southern border that left in something like 12 million illegals, who would you be to get offended that the American people would say, wait a minute, this wasn't a decision that we voted for. This was actually unelected bureaucrats that we didn't even know because we were being lied to about the president's health that were the people that were making this decision. Yeah. That seems to be a significant problem with bureaucracy.
Rob, but you
can I ask the floor for a moment?
And that splintering outward, that one thing's ability to splinter outward is totally different than asking what's actually like the 400-year journey or history of the United States. I don't know why you don't see that the way that I do.
Hold on, can I jump in there for 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead and jump in. Duck, you got 5 in the back.